Tokusatsu fans have it easier nowadays. I don't even need to bring up Ultraman's plethora of content in the United States. Super Sentai comes and goes, but at least it has a ton of physical releases as is. Sure, Kamen Rider is also giving us crumbs, but again, it's there. And all of these are officially available with subs, and even Ultraman has full-on dubs.
No matter how you look at it, Tokusatsu distribution has been great. Yes, it could be a lot better in some areas, but it's still much more than we've had in the past. However, these official releases are only recent, and as niche as Tokusatsu is today, fansubbing is important, even though it's kept an open secret.
I know bringing up fansubs can be considered taboo for someone with more than one follower on Twitter, and I've even held back on ever mentioning where to watch Toku on this channel.
But I figured enough is enough.
Fansubs need to be talked about because despite having official resources to watch these shows now, fansubs continue to be an important part of the medium. That might be a crazy statement, but bear with me.
I've been watching Tokusatsu for over a decade at this point, not counting the time I grew up with Power Rangers. When I first started watching Tokusatsu, specifically with Super Sentai, I didn't really know any of the details when it came to fansubs. I just knew that these words were on the shows, and I found out where to watch these on fansubber websites, and that was pretty much it. I never really questioned anything besides that. I think maybe I should have questioned if I could even watch these shows officially, because I just immediately gravitated towards the fan subs because hey, they're free. But then over time, I began to understand maybe I should really learn who were fan subbing these shows.
For the sake of keeping certain groups safe for reasons I'll explain in a bit, any mention of them in these comments will be muted. It should also go without saying to not tag anyone mentioned here.
Before we get to that, you might have a burning question, which is, what is the point of this video? Or even, what is the point of the Toku distribution series? Because everyone knows fan subs are important. Fan subs keep the community running. Without fan subs, we almost literally would not have a community. But there's been one phrase going throughout my mind, going throughout a lot of your minds, I hope, which is, Toei can do better.
In February 2019, during the run of Kamen Rider Geo, its producer, Shinichiro Shirakura, answered viewer questions. One person asked about final forms, which led to another person asking, what about Trinity? Once again, Shirakura is a producer for the show. He's a big man for Toei and the series of Kamen Rider as a whole. He responded with, you are supposed not to know about Trinity. Shirakura mentioned before that Toei doesn't see America as a viable market, so showing that we had access to scans wasn't exactly helping. Toei was cracking down on scans and leaks before this, but this incident just added to their strictness. A couple years later, almost out of the blue, one fan subgroup received a cease and desist letter, seemingly from Toei. This caused another fan subgroup to hide all of their Sentai and Rider subs. Shirakura said he hasn't heard of this incident, but, you know, correlation, causation, and all that.
The easiest outcry for the fan base would obviously be, oh my gosh, Toei hates us. Oh my gosh, why doesn't Toei bring Kamen Rider to the West? Trust me, I know. This channel got taken down twice. It's gotten more strikes than you can imagine. Other TokuTubers had channels taken down and plenty of strikes and all that. I know. I've seen plenty of people bring up that content creators or really just Twitter, social media, anything gives free exposure to these shows, whether they're fan subs or really just content from like me or any of my friends or really anybody. It's free exposure. So why does Toei seem like our enemy? Why do they seem like they want to bring us down at every possible chance? That comes with a really, really hard to hear answer. And that's because they are in their right to do so.
Earlier videos in this series already brought up Team Kamen Rider and Toei's very messy attempt to expand the brand to the West, mostly in America. During the release of this series, we even got news of Team Kamen Rider having a rework behind the scenes, which I can't go into. But it explains why it seems like they've been dormant. And where does that leave us? Well, at least we have some shows legally available, and Shirakura said he himself wants to bring more Rider to the West. Slowly but surely. Recently, he became the general manager of Toei's character strategy department, so we'll see how that goes.
How about we ask another question? Despite all these official releases, why do people keep using fansubs?
I believe there are two reasons fansubs still have a place within the sea of official media, those being libraries and recency. Most of these groups have been around for a while, and with that comes a collection of various shows, both within the big three of Toku and some of the more obscure series. This combats the recent release output of shows. Using Rider and Sentai as examples, Sentai's releases are still within what some would consider early Heisei, while Rider has a patchwork of various shows with no rhyme or reason, except for popularity. This leads me to the second point, recency. With fansubs, I can watch the currently ongoing series at the time and experience something new with friends. I think these 2 points make fansubs viable even today, as their large selections and newer shows can help people with watching toku of any type. This is not to bash DVD releases. Those have their merits, such as being, well, physical releases of these shows, something fans way back when would have never dreamed of. Another reason is that people can directly support these official releases, which in turn can give us more releases of these shows. They might even come out at a faster rate than what we've been getting.
In theory, at least.
While we have cat sites, some people may not know how to download or might be afraid to use them in general, and with how hush-hush people can be about them, this tends to lead others towards unofficial streaming sites. These streaming sites offer large libraries of toku without the need to download. Unfortunately, these sites also tend to have a major issue that turns veteran members of the community away.
These sites tend to take these free fansubs from people who donated their time and energy just to give you these subs to you, the viewer. And they take these fansubs and ask for donations, and the fansubbers don't see a single cent from it. I don't even think they get mentioned most of the time. They just get put up on the site and that's it. To some people, you may not care, you just want to watch the show, but I don't think that's a good reason. I think it's still right to at least appreciate and respect all the work these fansubbers are doing for free.
While this can just be looked over, certain other fun sites lock away features behind a subscription service, like high definition and no ads, while using these stolen fansubs. They'll even break up the episodes into parts to maximize ads. It doesn't help that these sites tend to not be the safest sites on the internet, and can also redirect you to less than savory places. Yes, these sites may help fans get into toku easily, though that doesn't excuse these sites' mistreatment of both fansubs and fans, and these fansubbers deserve better, along with the fans. I'm sure there are some sites that don't mean any ill intent and actually want to help the fans, but I don't think this is the way to do it.
I don't want to talk down to people who absolutely, for some reason, refuse to use torrents and refuse to just get these fansubs directly from the fansubbers. I don't mean to talk down to them, especially if you want to use these fun sites. I just want the fansubbers to get the respect they deserve. In fact, in preparation for this video, I interviewed a fansubber. Let's introduce Flame Subs.
Okay, so my name is Flame. Mostly find me on Twitter. I do fansubbing since, the last 3 years, I think. Kamen Rider is a pretty niche franchise. Until recently, we didn't get much official releases of any kind. So in that context, I believe fansubbing is pretty important. I myself wouldn't have gotten into Kamen Rider if not for old fansubs I managed to watch. It helps. It's a gateway for newer people to get into the fandom also.
How do you feel about Toei being more strict on fansubs?
Well, personally, as a fansubber, it does make things a bit tricky, maybe. You have to figure out what you can or can't do, even more so than before. Mostly, it's all well within their right to do it, so there's not much for me to say. I think everyone should at least be united in the fact that we are lucky to even have fansubs. We should support fansubbers too.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to hear that from a fansubber especially.
No problem.
Here's another story. Ever heard of Little Karibo? Maybe you've heard of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series. In the geek world, such as me being in this geek world, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series is a huge, huge deal. And Little Karibo, the creator of this series, got into Kamen Rider recently. This, of course, caused a big wave in the community. Here comes a giant content creator outside of the Toku circle, and he's into our niche show? I mean, James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, also brought up Kamen Rider once, but I think this is more direct. Little Karibo actually was talking about Kamen Rider on Twitter, so there you go.
I won't go much into what the fandom thought, cause wow, those comments. But one comment did stand out. Is it available legally? As much work that gets put into Fansubs, they're still in a gray area. And not everyone likes to use torrents or previously mentioned shady, fun sites. There are people who still want the legal means to watch these shows, and if only a few of them are available out of a 50-year legacy, then something might be wrong. Now for one of the most important aspects about Fansubs, probably the most important element that I don't see too many people ever bring up.
Fansubs are some of the only ways to watch these shows.
It's difficult enough to find certain shows in this niche, and that makes it almost impossible to find sub-toku. This point is pretty straightforward, so I won't dwell on it any longer. By the end of it all, Fansubs have helped grow a community. They helped create a community, especially when we're not given current shows.
Toei can do better. But will they? Only time will tell. Please support 01, the official release. It's really good.
And it may seem like we're done here, though we've been bringing up the physical releases since the beginning of this series. So, it's
now. Now is an ever-present concept that we must abide by naturally. And now, we have a whole bunch of Ultraman seasons on home video with complete English subtitles. That sounds awesome. The availability of any Ultraman season beyond Ultra Q through 7 before now was fairly sparse and case by case. For one, we have special exceptions such as Ultraman Towards the Future, an Australian production with syndication and media in the United States, as well as Ultraman Tiga, which was opted to be completely subtitled by Funimation instead of releasing the 4Kids dub. Seems a little intentional if you ask me, but regardless, you can't really complain about Tiga being completely subtitled. Also, through Shout Factory, we got Ultraman Leo, the Showa season at the very end of the classic era that was conveniently omitted from the 76 Chayo agreement. Though, with the Showa seasons, they all had issues that definitely made their viewing experiences fairly problematic. For the Chayo-produced Ultra Q, Ultraman, and Ultra 7 releases, the video masters were subpar, subtitles weren't synced properly, if not poorly translated, and it's pretty clear that their priorities weren't in the right places. And Ultraman is a pretty special horror show. Included is the original English dub, albeit coming from fan recordings, meaning that the sound quality straight up sucks after the first 3 episodes. And even when watching the dub, it seems to flip back to Japanese audio, with subtitles, indicating that they weren't accounting for edits made for television broadcast. Then there's the quote-unquote remastered sound effects, where stock sounds replace the original explosions and booms from the original soundtrack. The problem is that these aren't coming from the same sound libraries that old Tsuburaya and Toho productions used, which are still available to this day. It's a pretty bad time overall. Despite the problems, this DVD seems to have gotten pretty far in terms of the US market. I don't have it anymore, but when I was a kid, I bought my own DVD of Volume 1 of Ultraman from Toys R Us. I noticed things like the audio jumping from English to Japanese, but I sincerely thought that the remixed soundtrack was the original. And just this past month, I went to a store in Little Tokyo that specializes in vintage kaiju vinyl figures. And I had to take a picture of this magnificent Cicada Man figure, you know? So the lady working there, bless her soul, said to me, "Hey, check this out," and put Ultraman on a big screen right above the entrance, which I didn't notice until she turned it on. To my surprise, it was the 2006 BCI Eclipse, Golden Media Group, Tiga, UMC, Chayo, Your Mom, My Mom, and a few other companies. We'll get to that. Series 1, Volume 1 DVD, playing episode 14. Despite the episode being in Japanese, the opening was from the English dub. It's totally bizarre. That's the deal with the Chayo-produced DVDs. So what about Ultraman Leo? Here's the thing. The subtitles are alright, they get the job done, but the audio totally kills it. There's no updated sound effects or anything, but it's the score itself. There was an attempt to overlay the show's music with higher quality tracks, but they're out of sync with the show itself. Whether it was an effort to emphasize the sound that isn't remastered or not, it makes the entire viewing experience pretty tedious. So that's where we were at. Until a couple of years ago, after court agreements against Chayo were decided in the US for Tsuburaya's favor, the floodgates opened for them to start marketing the entire Ultra franchise there, not just the few I mentioned. And from there, they went to Mill Creek Entertainment to distribute English subtitled Ultraman seasons and movies for the market. Where have I heard that name before? Anyway, we finally have it. Blu-ray releases of the original Ultraman seasons in glorious high definition. Wait, this is 480p. It doesn't look much better than the DVDs from 2006. And the remastered sound effects are still tacked on. Okay, so how about Return of Ultraman? That's the earliest Ultra season we haven't gotten until now. Okay, this is just bizarre. So it seems like they have continued the trend of the added sound effects, though I'll give them this, it's much more low-key than the 2006 DVD's sound. Another issue I have is that these subtitles have very little quality control. They do the job most of the time, but grammar and spelling errors bring down the experience a little bit. So, how about Leo? Oh my god, it's the same problem as the Shout Factory release. It might even be completely unchanged from the Shout Factory release. The music is still out of sync, the subtitles are the same, and the video quality is extremely comparable to each other. Also, I may not have a physical copy, but on the non-steelbook edition of Leo, at least in early copies, the description declares it to be the 7th and final entry in the Ultraman series. What? So I alluded to it for a second, but Mill Creek aren't unfamiliar with the Ultraman franchise at all, as they were one of the many companies who were licensed in the partnership with Chayo to release Ultraman, Ultra Q, and Ultra 7, the latter two being with Shout Factory. Even still, there are some good things. For one, you have to consider that in Japan, home entertainment releases are considered a luxury. Prices there are much more expensive due to how television shows themselves are operated. And that's not factoring in the exuberant import fees that international fans have to pay just to get their media in a language they most likely don't understand. Although this isn't the main reason why these recent Mill Creek releases are important, it's a damn fine one. As for it being the main source of Ultraman in the West, it's a pretty acceptable start. Our standards in quality can only get better from here, and they have. Mill Creek's Ultraman Tiga is speculated to be the best home release of the season than any other before it. That's incredible. Not only that, but it could very well lead into many more areas who haven't gotten the Ultra series before getting it for the first time. It's honestly pretty cool to have people around the world being able to see the stuff we're all into, weaving a whole connective web of fans, no matter their location. And maybe it'll still stick to us as a niche market, but that's completely fine. We've already had this much success on our own as an online community. Mill Creek, you're pushing it, but you've got my support, even with all of these problems. Even then, this is one of the best times to be a Tokusatsu fan. We have a pretty good sprawl of Tokusatsu for sale right now. Its retail price is still pretty high, but as an owner of a few Generation Kakaida DVDs, they're great. Quick aside, INFP, Taurus, introverts, extroverts, I don't care about any of that. Talk to me when you take the Kakaida personality quiz. So yeah, check those out when you get the Damn. Is nothing sacred anymore?